Good day everyone, my name is Jericho J. Arot and I am going to report my topic, which is traumatic brain injuries. Traumatic brain injuries, or what we call TBI, is a sudden injury that causes damage to the brain. It may happen when there is a blow bump or jolt to the head. This is a closed head injury. A TBI can also happen when an object penetrates the skull. This is penetrating injury. In a word, trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event like accident, rape, or natural disaster. Here are some of examples of traumatic brain injury. Include concussions, edema, diffuse axonal injury, hematoma, skull fracture, hemorrhage, hypoxic or anoxic brain injury, and stroke. Concussion. Concussion are one of the more common traumatic brain injuries. They occur when the brain changes in function as a result of hitting the internal walls of the skull. Edema. Edema refers to the swelling of the brain that can occur as a result of any traumatic brain injury. Since the skull cannot accommodate the swelling, edema can cause pressure on the brain. Diffuse axonal injury. A diffuse axonal injury causes damage to the axon of the brain cells that makes them unable to function. There is no bleeding associated with diffuse axonal injury. However, there can be swelling. This type of injury can ultimately lead to a loss of certain function. Hematoma. A hematoma, an intracranial hematoma characterized by blood pooling in the brain of empty spaces around the brain in cause of ruptured blood vessels. Skull fracture. Skull fractures are rare. However, they can cause a change in the brain functions and possible infections when they do occur. 10. Fractures are usually monitored closely, while depressed fractures or fractures that are leaking cerebrospinal fluid requires surgical intervention. Hemorrhage. Hemorrhage or uncontrollable bleeding can occur within the brain tissue or in the spaces around the brain. A brain hemorrhage can occur as a result of TBI. However, when it occurs as an EBI, it is generally attributed to an aneurysm bursting. An aneurysm is a bulged blood vessels in the brain. Axonal hypoxic or anoxic brain injury. A hypoxic brain injury occurs when there is a shortage of oxygen to part of the brain, and anaxonic brain injury occurs when there is oxygen in part of the brain. Both of these injuries are generally attributed to disruption in natural breathing patterns. Stroke. A stroke occurs when blood flow to the brain is cut off and the brain cells begin to die. Strokes are generally either ischemic, caused by artery blockage, or either ischemic, caused by artery blockage, or hemorrhagic, caused by a blood vessels burst. In some cases, they can be caused by temporary clot and called transient ischemic attack. Here are examples of cause of traumatic brain injury, which is accident like car and motor crash, injuries, rape, and natural disaster.